All right, we are rolling. Finally got this up and running. This is good stuff. Welcome in. Full hour ahead as we have tons to get through on a busy sports weekend, not just previewing Thursday night's action, but we also got a full weekend ahead of us. So we're going to get into all that. But first, let's say hi. My name's Doug Kazarian, and we have the one and only analytics capper, Albert. How are you, my man?
I'm doing good, man. For those who don't know, Albert Wynn, home base for me is Dallas, Texas. I'm excited to get this on the road here. We've been talking to DubClub and creating content for them for a few weeks now, so I'm excited just to launch this off.
Yeah, right back at you. So, Albert, you and I have been talking about doing some content together for quite some time, and each of us are in our home studios right now. So you said analytics capper. You obviously have a site. You're wearing the cool merch, the golf shirt with the logo. I am at the cool sign behind me, very high tech. Onlyplayers.com is where all of my stuff is on in terms of videos and pics. But we obviously have a DC link that will be on the screen or could be on the screen right now. I'm not sure just what we have access to, but lots to get through. And really, it starts tonight, Albert, with Thursday night football with the go figure, right? We've suffered through the Jets, we've suffered through the Giants, and what do you know? You put good teams on in prime time, you might just get good games like we did last week with the Ravens and Bengals. Tonight, probably at the beginning of the season, we didn't think we'd have a nice matchup in terms of first place on the line when the Commanders were on the schedule, but here we are, both teams with um, seven wins, so first place on the line. What's your early read on this game?
I like Philadelphia, Doug. I think
Really?
Washington has been a really nice story. Jaden Daniels obviously is the runaway favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's been unbelievable, taking care of the ball, making really tough throws, and also changing that entire mindset for that franchise, right? They brought in Dan Quinn and they drafted a quarterback. So two new faces of the franchise, and it's only been positive. But I think I like the Eagles tonight because they've been in this position for several years now, basically throughout Jalen Hurts' career, even prior to that. Nick Sirianni has been in this position several times, so I like them. They're a lot more comfortable, in my opinion, to go on a island game like tonight, Thursday night football. They're 4-point favorites at home. I actually think it's I'm not gonna say blowout, Doug, but I think there's potential for the Eagles to potentially run away in that second half.
How much do you pay attention to the fact that it could be square money on the dog, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have betting principles when it comes to handicapping sports. One of the most popular ones, and Doug, I'm sure you're aware, is people do not like public underdogs, right? Everybody's gonna, everybody likes Mahomes at home as an underdog. Everybody likes, when the Warriors went 73-9. I think they were an underdog twice, covered both times. I mean, there's a lot of examples of a public underdog covering and potentially winning outright. But for me, to answer your question, that is one of the rules that I have. I either stay away or I'm definitely not going to bet it. But in this game, I do like the Eagles just because, in my opinion, just from a roster standpoint, they are a deeper team, both on offense and defense. And if Philadelphia has the lead with that offensive line, with that rushing attack, I think they have the ability to stretch that lead in the second half.
So I'm on the over. I see what you're saying because I was on the dog, but we saw some movement here from 3.5 to 4, and I understand the potential. So I got off the dog, so to speak. So like in my pick'em league, I'm on the Commanders, but I have some time to change it between now and then. I think Philly's the fresher team, right? You have the short week travel, not that it's a long distance, but I do have some concern that Philly had such a cruise control game in that Barkley only had 14 carries. They blew out the Cowboys. It was sort of just going through the motions on the fourth quarter. So, but I'm on the over because Philly's won 5 straight, and the offensive is clicking. Remember, they went through so much of the year unable to score in the first quarter, and then back-to-back games. They've actually had the first game's touchdown in the first quarter, so they kind of worked out those kinks, if you will. But I just think this opponent is going to force them to keep scoring because Washington, with Kingsbury at pulling the strings, they're really well coached on offense, and I think Jaden Daniels is just sort of the good defense beater, if you will. I mean, he's kind of solved the Steelers last week, scored early and often, and he just has incredible poise. And with his dynamic mobility, it's really hard to get pressure on him. He can escape the pocket. So I think Philly's going to have to score and keep scoring. This is the first opponent they're facing in this 5 game win streak coming in that's actually going to be able to match their offense. Since he did a little bit, the Jags backdoored covered, but that was just kind of garbage time. So I actually like the over most in this. Now it's gone up to 49 and a half. It's a fairly big number by, NFL standards today, but I think what those low scoring games that we saw most of last year and the beginning part of this year are a thing of the past. Offenses are clicking, and I think we're going to see some points tonight.
Yeah, I do want to push back a little bit, Doug, on Jaden Daniels. I think he had a great start to the season, and obviously he's a great player. And I talked about it earlier how he's changed the entire mindset for that team, that community, if you will. But in the last game, 2 games, Doug, he is 17. He was 17 for 34 against the Steelers, only 50% completion rate for only 202 yards. Before that, previous game, he was against the Giants. The Giants are a terrible team. He only had 209 yards passing. So, not that he's regressed, but I think there is a little, hey, we have some film now on this guy, and maybe we can confuse him a little bit. So, take that in mind. I think Washington's going to be playing from behind all night long. So, the over makes a lot of sense because they do have a lot of home run threats. Eckler is a machine in the red zone, and even though Jaden Daniels hasn't had the crazy numbers the last 2 weeks, he still doesn't turn the ball over, which is really, really important for games like this.
It's a great point. I forget what they had last week, but they only had 3 turnovers going into last week, which is just a remarkable, remarkable run. One thing I also want to get into, and I think we did a baseline of just introducing ourselves, but for the most part, we're not everyone knows who we are and things like that. You and I connected in 2020, and you've slowly but surely built your business while being a father of now 3, while being also a regular job. I mean, it's pretty impressive, and all the handicapping, but you've grown your entity. And I knew you was someone I wanted to partner with early on because you definitely have a different approach. So I think we can play sort of devil's advocate with each other and extract sort of nuggets, maybe get off games, like maybe I'm getting off Washington because I'm chatting with you. But I think we bring out the best of each other and complement one another. But it's any handicapper should be able to kind of, I don't know, view their angles, view their own card through a different lens, and I think you helped me do that. But you've been doing this a long time. I'd love for you to share that with our audience.
Yeah, there's a few things. Doug mentioned it. We did meet in 2020 thanks to Russian table tennis. I haven't touched the ping pong in 4.5 years, but that was a crazy, crazy time to be alive. But I think the very successful bettors or handicappers in this space are the ones that can marry, different principles, different approaches, and then make a final decision, right? So I do have simulations and models that I leverage. So from a mathematical standpoint, I feel like I'm pretty strong in that. But fast forward to 2024, Doug, as you know, there's thousands of people that now are doing models and are math guys and are brilliant at it, way smarter than me. So how do I evolve and better as a person and as a better is really the narrative side of it, the human side of it, the trend side of it. I do all of it, together to make a final decision. And then the other thing is, even though there might be 15, NFL games in a week, I'm probably only going to be on 3 or 4 of those games, right? Maybe 5 max. So yeah, I appreciate everything that you're sharing here on the screen. For those who don't know, I turned 40 just a couple weeks ago. I've been betting since my freshman year of college, paid my sophomore year at Cal all through betting, and that's when I knew like this could be something that could be sustainable moving forward. 2020 COVID hit, and I decided to create a social media account and kind of monetize everything. So one really, really big milestone just happened this week is with DubClub, right? I'm entering the 3rd month with DubClub. They've been amazing. The ecosystem is great. The leadership is awesome. But 50,000 in sales is really a testament to not only the success that we're winning, but also like people retaining as customers. And then some of the other things you see here going on in 5 years. All 5 years have been positive. I'm 1 unit away from hitting 200 units for a year. Hopefully that's this year. I need a really strong, November and December, Doug.
That's great. Great breakdown. I appreciate you getting into it. I think people might know me just from the platform I had with ESPN. So I was obviously at ESPN for a while. But people don't know that maybe before that, I was actually a conventional broadcaster, and my career took me through Las Vegas. So I first moved to Las Vegas in '05, and this is before the Golden Knights, before the Raiders, before the Aces, and even before Mayweather was, I always joke that Mayweather was fighting at the Thomas and Mack Center when I first started covering him. So really the home team was betting. So I did, local sports. I was covering bad beats and just, the point spread for Monday Night Football. I mean, just think about, before national legalization, I was doing all this stuff in my local sportscast. I did a quick pick at night. And so what I did is I got to know pro bettors, I got to know odds makers, and that's just evolved over the last 2 decades. And I kept ties with all my contacts while I was, even at ESPN. And then obviously when Daily Wager launched, I was able to host that and then position myself internally and then moved out to Vegas, obviously, with the launch of the Caesar studio. But so I've been doing this quite a while. It was funny, the masses who didn't know my background just thought I was like a talking head. It took over the ESPN, show and things like that internally. But it was good to branch out and be able to do some stuff. And this year, I went on my own with onlyplayers.com. And, I should say a little over a year ago, and we launched, and we've been fine tuning our team, right? Our internal team. I'm obviously the face of it in terms of the analyst. And then, we've been able to track records, be transparent. We have our own app, setting out alerts and things like that. But I've been obviously doing this a long time and able to, I've had a nice run in some contests as well. And this is the sort of the graphics. And, this is a lot of like self promotion and things like that. But this is where I think the space should go. Albert, I know you and I are a big fan of transparency because if you think about the betting space, it's still like top of the first inning, right? Like it's, legalization happened in 2018. People are getting into it, and it's all these like people that think they want to sound smart and do this, but they're really betting personalities, which is great. Like Cousin Sal's one of the best there is. He's never claimed to be this like expert and stick with me, you'll win. He just loves betting, and he's very good personality, and it's but there's are people who know what they're talking about, and we have other industries where there's specialists. And I just want to get to a point where, like the finance world, where these graphics appear on the screen, and it's not like weird. It's not. It's everyone should have to do this, right? We should have full transparency in that regard. And over time, I think the water finds its level, and it'll come to that. But I knew I wanted to sort of partner with you on a show and do some other cool stuff because I know you believe in this sort of transparency.
Yeah, Doug, I want to interject there. I mean, for those who don't know Doug Kazarian, maybe they've just followed me and other handicappers. Doug is one of the sharpest people in this industry. He's talking in front of a camera all day long, but he is so well connected with, all the betting, basically the big players in this industry. They all know Doug, and Doug knows all of them. And so when people read markets, right, or when they look at a screen and they see how the market's moving, the number of bets here, number of tickets here, like Doug has all that already, like straight directly to his phone, and it's accurate. So like I want to make sure people understand how big of a get that this was for DubClub, right? First and foremost, because Doug is so good at what he does, and then secondly, I mean, he just showed it there on the screen. He is a winner in all of these like major global national contests, but also he's capping the small sports as well. Like if you want WNBA, if you want UFC, he's talking about all that as well. So it's a pleasure, it's an honor to be on a show with Doug, and I hope we just continue to build this together, man.
Well, thanks, dude. That's very nice of you to say. I mean, we're buddies now, so we don't have to say the honor word. But no, I mean, look, I have. It is a nuanced industry, right? So I always try to make the parallel that instead of Wall Street, if like you want to buy a stock, it's one price, right? But there's like 8 Wall Streets in betting world, so it might. I mean, now granted, tonight it's 4 everywhere in terms of the Thursday night football line, but it is will move and stuff like that. So let's say it went from 3.5 to 4 today with a few text messages, I can find out why did it move, and then I'll get to the book that says, "Oh, we took a sharp bet." Whereas another book will be like, "Look, the market moved. We're just going to move because we don't want one-sided action." But it is important to get to that. Whereas people are just making stuff up. Oh, the line moved to 4. You hear things like they're trying to get you to bet the Commanders. It's like, no, they just took a sharp bet, and that's all that's going on right here. And that's what I try to do at Only Players is try to teach. It's about knowledge building. I try to make the parallel, and you got the golf clubs at the back, but it's kind of like the caddy and swing coach and game plan all in one, right? Because you can learn how to hit a 150-yard shot side hill in your lesson, but you have to also apply it because sometimes let's say a 150 out is like your 7-iron or something like that. What if you've shanked your last 2 7-irons? What do you do? What if the pin's back? What if the pin's up? What if you're in a match play and the other guy's in the woods? What do you hit? So like it's not just one size fits all. You have to kind of apply your acumen moving forward, and that's what we're trying to do, and do some like Zoom calls and teach sessions, because I know poker pros do this with a lot of CEOs, poker coaching. So this space will blossom, and DubClub is a great platform to like get to know people, and obviously they do a nice job of partnering the two sides and making sure they're filtered and transparent. And that's what I love about being able to do this is you get to know the people and understand what they're all about, instead of just sort of like some random creative billboards or commercialization of some people hiding behind some misleading advertising.
I love it, man. So, I mean, we talked about all we got to talk about when it comes to the two of us. We'll sprinkle,
Yep.
the stuff that we've done and our, history as we do these shows. For those who don't know, we're going to be doing this show every Thursday at the same hour from 1 to 2 Central. That's 2 to 3 Eastern. Thursday is super important. That's why I wanted this time block, Doug, because it's not only Thursday night football, but we're jumping into the rest of the weekend. As you know, that's where the majority of the action is going to be.
Yeah, and the markets have moved, so we can relay why it's moved to a certain extent. Weather reports are more accurate, because I know we have some weather surfacing in some college games that we're going to get into. So Albert and I are going to share our favorite college and pro games for the weekend. We're even going to touch on some Mike Tyson, Jake Paul stuff. Albert is great in the smaller markets. He's been murdering tennis of late. All that, and we have a free trial going on, right? So we believe in the long game, so to speak. My track record speaks for itself. Albert's certainly does, but again, I think this is a way for us to pull back the curtain a little bit, let others get to know kind of the method to our madness, and also how we process games, because that's why I definitely want to dive into some plays for the card. Before we turn the page on this NFL game, any props that stand out to you? I'm on Barkley over 18 and a half rushing
Yeah.
attempts. Again, I said it earlier. I think this is going to be a 4-quarter game for the Eagles where they weren't pressed, so to speak. To your point, I do think there's going to be a game script where they're bleeding clock. Yes, you always run the risk of one carry for 40 yards, and he does Saquon Barkley Tecmo Bowl things. But outside of that, he only had 14 carries last. I think there's going to be a higher usage. He's fresher. I think we're going to get to 20 plus.
I think that's a great look, and it's not only carries. I think he's going to catch a lot of balls out of the backfield too. Jalen Hurts has been really checking down to Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley out there in the flat. So I like Saquon a lot in this game. I'm not a big anytime touchdown better, right? But Jalen Hurts has been on fire. I'm not saying you should continue to push that because I think he's had like 5 or 6 now in the last couple of weeks. But I think Saquon gets in, and I think my pick, kind of like my lottery pick, is Zach Ertz is a revenge spot for the Washington Commanders tight end, going back home to Philly where he played 8-9 years. He was a Pro Bowler there, and I think he's gonna have an opportunity, whether he catches it or not. I think he has an opportunity at least once or twice to catch a touchdown. But here's a caveat, Doug: if he catches a touchdown, I think Philly and Sirianni is so petty that he's going to try to get Dallas Goddard a touchdown. So if you're able to get a live tight end type prop,
Wow.
anytime tight end prop, wait till if and when Zach Ertz scores, then I would put some money onto Dallas Goddard.
What about a same game parlay before the game with both of them?
I mean, that's we're a couple weeks late there because it was National Tight End Day a couple of Sundays ago, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's very contingent though on Ertz scoring first, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to fight you on the the pettiness of the Eagles coaching staff, Sirianni. I think that's funny. I think that's a really good angle, and I love it. I'm here for that. So we'll get back to. I want to touch more on something with the Hurts situation, but let's pivot to the NBA. There's only one game on the card tonight. It was a busy couple days with the NBA Cup starting, but I'm just one game, and I was like, I'm not thrilled with this game. But the Mavericks have lost three straight. They're 9-point road favorites in Salt Lake City, and gosh, I mean, the Mavs aren't playing bad ball. I mean, look, Steph Curry goes bonkers on the comeback. They lost to Phoenix. It's all justifiable losses, but I think we see a focused effort out of the Mavs. But the spread reflects that. Hey, you're in Dallas. The Mavs are your team. What do you got here?
Yeah, I've been very, very, I'd say successful so far in this early season of the NBA. I've hit four straight, 8 of last 10 NBA, and I focus a lot on first half spots. If I like a situational opportunity, whether it's rest advantage, whether it's going on the road, and taking advantage of injuries, things like that, I like the first half spot more than the full game. But with that being said, I think I'm laying off this game. I do think the Jazz are a team that are not trying to win, but they are still good enough, especially marketing, to be competitive. So there's actually been more than 60% of their games this season where they led the first half and lose the game. So if you're looking at something like that, maybe there's a potential angle there. For me, I'm going to jump in the fourth quarter. If this is like a game within 5 points, within two possessions, I'm going to ride the Mavs in that fourth quarter because there's two things, right? They just came off three games where they lost a combined 6 points. That's Denver, Phoenix, and Golden State, all three really good clutch teams. And then the Jazz, I mentioned it, they're not trying to win at all. So I think they're just gonna like let Dallas score in that fourth quarter. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the quarter by at least double digits. And one other thing that is a big deal for Dallas, doesn't really make an impact on the betting lines, is now with Derek Lively coming back, they're a completely different basketball team when it comes to the defensive rebounding and also like protecting the rim. So with Gafford and Lively, they're going to play a lot better defense moving forward.
And who was playing in those few minutes when Lively was out, and PJ Washington's obviously still out as well.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of his, but Dwight Powell, every time he gets some minutes, he's going to give up some layups to the other team. He's a big energy guy, but he's only 6'8", 6'9", 240 pounds at most. Everybody's going to be able to muscle him. So Lively is a completely different animal.
It's funny. It's why I was fading Canada in the Olympics. Everyone's like, they're the second best team. It's like, no, they start Dwight Powell at center and Kelly Olynyk. They can't be the best team. So, you validated that indirectly for me. So good to know. There's also one FBS game tonight as well. And this is a game that I think is going to be, well, it's going to be entertaining because the over-under is 63. But we have East Carolina and Tulsa. And you see at the bottom of the screen, four straight overs. And it makes sense. So ECU did something recently midseason that only some teams do, but we see it more frequently. Is Caton Hauser took over quarterback duties from Jake Garcia, and it's been a clear upgrade at the QB possession for this Pirates offense over the past three games. They also have back-to-back wins where they've scored 56 and 49. Now, obviously, you can't just look at that in a vacuum and say, oh, four straight over. Their defense is bad, but their offense is really clicking. And Tulsa, their defensive unit is the worst unit on the field. They're terrible on D. They allow big explosive plays and on early downs on offense. I'm going to probably split up a unit half and half, but I really like the ECU team total over. It's a big number, 38.5 at FanDuel, 39.5 with the same juice at DraftKings, but I think Tulsa's going to be willing to play. Now, if anybody who watched North Texas last week, now I was on the over, but Army was like, Service Academy porn. They had a 14-play drive in the third quarter that took up 26 play that took up 14 minutes. Like, their game plan was to bleed the clock, keep the ball away from North Texas, things like that. Both these teams are going to cooperate and run up and down the field. Now, that's why it's 63 and not like 49 and a half. But I still think it's short for this ECU team that's just going to sling it.
Yeah, I'm not going to be on this game pre-flop. A lot of people say that, but I do think the over makes a lot of sense. The number is random, right? When it comes to football betting, both in college football and NFL, you look at some of the key numbers, and that's not just spreads, but totals as well. So numbers that Throughout the history of football, which numbers have landed on the most, and you can get all that data. And 63 is a pretty random number, to be honest. So it's random for a reason, and I think the over is a great look here. I will say from a situational situation or a perspective, I mean, East Carolina coming off scoring 56 and 49, and Tulsa giving up 59 and 45. I mean, that's a really, really tough situation to find value on East Carolina, even though obviously they're far and away, the better team here. But I do like Doug's look in terms of the over.
Yeah, I mean the market does use stats from the whole season, kind of like I always talk about in the NFL. Like if I'm making models and numbers, I throw out all the Patriots games that have Jacoby Brissett because it's such a upgrade at quarterback, and Drake May's just an over quarterback compared to Brissett who couldn't throw the ball past the first down marker, right? So you have May who adds the running element, things like that. I just think the numbers are too skewed. You just have to look at a smaller sample size in that case. So we'll see. We'll see if one of these coaches tries to channel some army and bleed the clock. I hope not. But that's where I am in terms of this game for tonight in terms of the FBS. So there's a lot of football on in terms of the NFL and college. But I want to go some rapid fire. We can channel our inner Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon with some PTI. I just think it's important to see some betting
Legends.
trends, some concept. Yeah, you don't have to wave the Canadian flag either at the end of this. But we see that whether it be trends on social media or we see stuff, and as gamblers, we have FOMO. It's just how we're wired. We're so the biggest fear of all of us is liking a side, seeing the game play out, and seeing that bet could have won. It's like torture, right? So here we see these trends that are just staring us in the face. You mentioned Jalen Hurts, right? He has scored a touchdown, not thrown, but scored in 4 straight and 6 of 9 games this year for Philly. And it was plus money for most of the year. Now it's minus money. So the market's corrected a little bit. And Hurts last week scored from like the 8-yard line. We're not just talking about the brotherly shove as well. So when you see this and you are tempted, is this a automatic just buy the rest of the year? Because I mean, look, 4 straight and 6 of 9. He's such a big part of their offense.
I think rest of the year you're gonna make money, but I'm just not that type of better, right? I don't look at a slate and say I'm gonna do all unders or I'm gonna do all underdogs, right? But if you are, I think you can find potential value with Jalen Hurts. I'm more of a contrarian, regressional type better, and so when Jalen Hurts is on fire like this, when it comes to rushing touchdowns, I look at Saquon Barkley, who hasn't been in the end zone in a few weeks, right? So I think he has the potential to get in 2 or 3 times. AJ Brown hasn't gotten to the end zone in a couple weeks, whether through injury or whether just not getting any opportunities. So there's a lot of A+ horses on this team, right? Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. They have so many opportunities to spread the ball around that if they find a mismatch that they can just take advantage of all night long, you're going to see Jalen Hurts get 3 touchdowns. You're going to see Saquon Barkley get 2 or 3, receiving touchdowns. I think that Eagles are a team right now where this is exactly where they want to be in terms of national perception, because the Eagles for the last couple years have always been Super Bowl or bust, and they still are with that amount of talent. But with the Bills, with Mahomes being undefeated, with Lamar going for another MVP, no one's really talking about the Eagles as much as previous years. A lot of that is because we saw
Which is
some.
great for compared to last year when they were 10-1 and then didn't even win the division
They
and
didn't
got
even
smoked
win
in
the
the first
division,
round.
right? It's a lot of pressure, and once you have 1 or 2 playoff failures, I think it just hardens you. And I think this is a great spot for Philly. And I mean, this city needs it, right? The Sixers look horrible. Philly's flamed out, like in very bad fashion against the Mets. And then I think the Eagles could be their saving grace. I'm not saying they're going to be able to win the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't be surprised if they get there. And if they get there, they're going to have to lean on Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. I have no opinion. I'm with you. I don't blindly bet a trend that's like you might grind out a few cents the rest of the year. I just am, someone. But if I don't play the boost because there's sort of small limits and things like that. But I respect a lot of our audience that does. Maybe you throw that on. Maybe you do some of that, no sweat bets, things along those lines. It's just not in my daily routine, but it's hard to argue against it. But it is worth discussing because it is such a popular opponent or thing opportunity on out there. Another thing that I was on yesterday that went from minus 130 to minus 145 is there's a prop at DraftKings is which team throughout the course of the entire NBA season will have the longest win streak. And of course, you're looking at the Cavs who are 12 and 0 to start the year and they're double digit favorites over Philly. And so after they won as double digit favorites, it jumped to minus 230. So now they're at 13 and it could go higher. Obviously, they can keep winning. And now you have to think about, will any other team catch them throughout the course of the rest of the NBA season? And I don't think so. If you're willing to tie up some money the rest of the year, I think this is an absolute banger. Like at minus 230. I mean, just think about the ROI you can get. Now you have to wait till the end of the regular season. So I couldn't fault anyone for not wanting to do it. But these are the things that there are opportunities. It's called derivative betting, outside the conventional. There's really good opportunities. So I think it's a buy. What number would you need for it to be to not have it a buy?
No, before I even get to that, this is example 5,000 of why Doug Kazarian is amazing in this space, right? No one's really looking at these potential, betting angles. I mean, 13 and 0 for the Cavs. For those who don't know, there's been 5 teams in modern history that went 13 and 0. 4 of those made the NBA Finals that year. So a lot of pressure right now in Cleveland to be the 5th team. The one team was actually the Mavericks who didn't make it. With that said, it's so hard for a team to win 13 straight games. The value here, I think, is still great. To answer your
Yeah.
question, when is it not worth it for my money? If I can, I mean, knock on wood, I don't want to say guarantee or lock or anything like that, but if I could turn $300 into $100, I'll do that every single time and twice on Sundays, right? So I would say minus 300 is probably when my buy point is over here, but the Cavs are not stopping. That's the other thing. Like this is a
I
streak
was
that's
just
yeah, it's a streak that's still going, and they're a team
We have
right
the
now.
Bulls and Cavs next. So the home games, the Bulls and Cavs, and then at Boston. Sorry, Bulls and Hornets, I should say, and then at Boston after that.
And it's a team roster wise that's built from like this age group right here, Doug. They're not a team that's going to be like, oh, we want to just be healthy for the playoffs. This is a team that wants to set records and be in the front of the news. And I think this is a streak that's not going to end anytime soon. And if it does end, it's because the Cavs are shooting, I don't know, 8 for 45 from threes. But they have the defense to be able to stay competitive in every single game. And if they're making threes like they have been, I mean, they become unbeatable.
Yeah, they're deep, and they were solid to start the year last year, and then just got hit by the injury bug, right? So like obviously, I think Kenny Atkinson's great. I have him 20 to 1 to win Coach of the Year. Now he's the plus buck 180 favorite, but as long as they stay healthy, they are a serious threat to the Boston Celtics for the 1 seed out east and the number 1 overall seed as well. And just a reminder, we have free trial links in Twitter and everything like that. So make sure you check us out because obviously the weekend, the 3 days always lines up pretty perfectly in that regard. I also want to run this by you, and this is something where I am extremely transparent. I have a army of people behind me where I lean on them like hockey. Winnipeg, 15 and 1 to start the season, but they are underdogs tonight in Tampa Bay. Now, obviously, we know the Lightning are solid and everything like that. What's Winnipeg doing, Albert, that makes them 15 and 1, and why wouldn't they be a bet on that? Whatever they're doing to start these first 16 games, that would stop all of a sudden against the Lightning.
Yeah, for those who know me and have followed me, previously, you guys are gonna know like Tampa Bay is gonna be a play for me, right? It's
Contrarian for sure.
it might even be my favorite play of the day. With that being said, it might not lose. I mean, Winnipeg is 15-1. What are the things that they're doing outside of puck luck? I mean, there's a lot of luck when it comes to hockey and you know small scoring or low scoring games like these, but they are keeping the puck in the offensive zone. And when you do that and you increase your chances throughout the game, you're gonna have streaks where you go 15-1. But tonight, man, not only are they getting the majority of the bets, and it depends on what you're looking at, but right now I'm looking at Action Network, right? So they're getting 88% of the bets, 80% of the tickets. And the line is moving pretty hard towards the Lightning. It opened up pretty even, pick 'em if you will, but now it's minus 125, minus 130 in the Lightning's favor. There's a few things that you need to look at for this game and for hockey in general is to me, rest advantage in hockey is more important than basketball and football. It's a grueling sport. Maybe they don't get hurt and injured, but they're a reason why they're only having 30 to 60-second shifts because they're balls to the wall going 100%. And when you have the rest disadvantage against a team, especially if you have to go on the road, I'm looking at those spots all the time. So Tampa Bay is a huge, potential angle for me. And when it comes to hockey, I'm looking at scheduling wins way more than, like I said, football on short weeks or basketball 3 and 4 nights type of situations. I think it means a lot more in hockey.
Okay, good breakdown. I'll say this just to play devil's advocate is that there was probably some sharp money betting into the Jets the last handful of games as well. Now, the Jets, were probably favored in some of those games and things like that. Anytime there's a win streak or a cover streak, like Indiana Hoosiers, right? Bunch of guys were betting against in the last 5 weeks. Yeah, they were right last weekend because they didn't cover, but they covered against in a lot of other games. So when there is a win streak like this or a cover streak, remember, if you tail even late, you can only be wrong once. But if you try to beat the streak, you can be wrong multiple times. So it's just something to keep in mind. At some point, there are certain things going on that's outperforming the market. Like I had pro bettors who do computer modeling that told me when Belichick retired or when Brady and Belichick separated, is like they admitted like there was stuff that Belichick was doing that just was not modelable, right? Like you just couldn't do it. And sometimes, and this gets into our next segment, which is the NFL, and we hear Mahomes, right? All this 12-1-1 as an underdog. So here we are, Chiefs 2.5-point dogs in Buffalo as we switch gears and go to the NFL card because we're 20 minutes and change, and we want to definitely get into our favorite plays for the weekend. So, but let's start with this Chiefs Bills game. I'm on the teaser. I teased the Dolphins to plus 8.5 with the Chiefs. Now, I was not someone who bet against the Chiefs in the Niners game because that's what this game reminds me of, right? They're on the road, right? I just abstained. But I do think there is a X factor. It's a little cheesy, a little squarish to say, but I do think there's something to be said because the Chiefs aren't trying to cover all these games. They're just trying to win. So betting against them, I'm all for. I grabbed the points with the Broncos last week. My favorite play was 2 weeks ago on Monday night with the Bucks. But now they're just trying to win, and they do things like I think Andy Reid in-game X's and O's does a very good job, right? Spags does a nice job as well, and there's an element of I don't think McDermott's that great, and I think they're beat up. Like Kincaid's probably not going to play, and tight ends have done really well against Kansas City's defense, so that's a big negative there. I want no part of the Bills, but I know you're on Buffalo. Why is that?
Yeah, so there's 4 marquee games this week, Doug, if you want to break it down. So we have tonight Washington, Philly, two, winning teams going for first place in the NFC East. We have Baltimore, Pittsburgh, huge AFC North, battle there. Obviously, you mentioned it with KC and Buffalo, and then we have on Sunday night we have Cincinnati traveling to the Chargers. So in my opinion, 4 marquee games. I think the favorites are going 3-1. So if you can find the one loser, that's amazing, and you should teach me how to find it. Or if you really believe that the favorites here and 3 of the 4 are going to be at home, then I would bet all 4. And I think that's going to be my strategy heading into this Week 11.
Why do you think Why do you think favorites are going 3-1?
Um, I I simplified it, Doug, and say I think the favorites are going 3-1. But if you look at every game of those 4 that I kind of mentioned there, I like 3.5 of those favorites already.
Right.
Yeah.
So you think like they'll be okay.
Yeah.
Like comes out in the wash, so to speak.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, I've and you talked about sources and things like that with the NFL, and really also, I just want to canvas sort of the sharps with my sources and sort of aggregate. Like that's my skill set. I think I aggregate. I think I lean on someone like yourself who's got modeling things like that. I talk to my odds make. Like I know, like I've had a nice job this year of avoiding some of the trendy sharp plays, like the Niners against the Chiefs, or fading Indiana every week, fading some of these other teams. Now I've taken the bait a few times as well and had my own screw ups, but. The sharp money's on the Ravens minus the 3, Bills got some early money. That's why I went from 1 to like 2.5. I mean, just all the line movement, right? Lions up to 14. Sharp money did come in at 12.5. I did like the Raiders over the touchdown against Miami. If you just look at the scheduling spot, Raiders off a bye, and then you have Miami on a short week. That should never be scheduled. Um, if you think about it, this juncture of the season, especially when bodies are sort of falling apart. And I think this is stone under in that game because Antonio Pierce fired his offensive coordinators, play callers. The tone is let's get back to running, which is what Pierce was saying in the beginning of the season anyway, when he became the full time head coach. So I think it's going to be a heavy run sort of game. Tua was taking unnecessary sacks. I mean, Crosby should wreak havoc. I thought the Miami defense has been playing a lot better of late. And I think this is going to be sort of like a 20-17 game. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Raiders won just because it's the NFL and stupid stuff happens and the scheduling spot really favors Vegas. And I will say Pierce may not be the best user of decision making of timeouts and field goals versus touchdowns, but he does push the right buttons, right? He called out his team on the business decisions, and he, as a guy who brings credibility to the locker room, having won a Super Bowl, having played recently, he does, walk the walk after talking the talk. So I think these guys are going to come ready to play, and they've been pretty receptive. Like they got rid of Devontae for the right reason. So the guys left in the locker room, I think, are receptive to Pierce's, I don't know, old school coaching style, given that he played under Tom Coughlin, Colonel Coughlin. And so I think they're a live dog to a certain extent. I would just not tease Miami. Let me put it that way. But I like the under a lot in that game. Some other sharp money. This Broncos steam, I understand. You have Atlanta going outdoors and all that stuff. I still think the Broncos might have a tough time matching the Falcons' offense. What are some other games that have caught your eye from the NFL?
Yeah, I want to get back to the AFC North. I think Pittsburgh Steelers against Ravens potentially could be the best game of the weekend. Um, the Steelers have been on fire, right, since Mike Tomlin has decided to go with Russell Wilson, right? Russell Wilson, and he's been great. He's been making a lot of the big throws. He had a really clutch game winner last weekend. I think they've won now 4 straight games, and this was a huge, inflection moment in the season when they were 4-2 with Justin Fields, and Tomlin still had a quarterback change, right? And it's paid off dividends. Everything has been positive for Pittsburgh. They're gonna be at home against the Ravens, but I just feel there's something about this Ravens team, Doug. It's almost like a
I'll tell you what it is. It's their offense.
yeah. I mean, the marrying of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson has really, elevated this offense to levels that even Lamar has never even reached. And he's a multiple-time MVP winner in this league. I know he's only 25 or 26, so the success that he's already had is incredible. But this is, in my opinion, the only year where I felt like they should win it all. And so I like the Ravens in this game. He struggled historically against Pittsburgh. This could be kind of like, let me answer some of those demons type moments. And you and I were on a show a couple weeks ago where I liked Oregon at home. This is college football, and it was going to be Dylan Gabriel's Heisman moment. I think we get a potential MVP moment for Lamar Jackson in this game on the road against a big divisional opponent like this. I like the Ravens -3, and it's similar to the Eagles tonight. If the Ravens head into halftime tied or up, that team is almost unbeatable with a lead. So they're going to extend that lead in the second half.
Well, Lamar is the -110 NFL favorite for the MVP, NFL MVP. I will say that I'm reluctant to do a -110 juncture at this juncture of the season. This goes back to the FOMO thing. Like, okay, let's say Lamar goes to -250 after they went. So what? You missed a -110 bet. That has a likely chance now. 250 is what? 60%. If you convert money line, actually it's 5/7. So whatever 5/7 is. And so the earlier in the season, the more you should look at long shots because that's where the movement happens. Lamar's going to go from at most -110 to 200, but if something happens, Jaden Daniels is amazing tonight. He's going to go from 20-1 to like 8-1, right? So the biggest changes percentage-wise, right, happened. So earlier in the season, like the Heisman Trophy in October, you should never be betting like Ashton Genty when he's the favorite because he can only go down, right? So the only time, and you mentioned before the Ohio State Oregon game, uh, Gabriel was like 14-1, then he became like the favorite, right? So that's the biggest jump. So what's the upside versus the downside? The downside of not betting Lamar and seeing him play well and great is like, yeah, okay, so he might win MVP and you missed out on a minus 110 bet that will not cash till Super Bowl weekend. Okay, that happens. And there's still Mahomes magic ahead, Allen ahead. Now, if Josh Allen is great, and I think he will be in this game because he's really has to be, like that's a guy that can win. And of course, we can't do a show together, Albert, without my mentioning Jared Goff. Like this is why I think Goff has no chance to win the MVP.
Yeah.
It's like these guys are just so much more valuable. Like no voter in their right mind can sit there and enter a ballot on Goff when there's these other guys out there. Now, I don't care if the Lions are 17-1 or 16-1. Someone's going to be the 2 seed, and someone's going to be the 1 seed and the 2 seed out in the AFC, and they're going to have a good quarterback play and a worthy candidate, and it's going to be one of these guys that are just complete difference makers. So that's why at the beginning of the week, Goff, after his 5 picks, was still 18-1, whereas FanDuel had him 39-1. They're like, all right, give me what you got, bring all the money. That's fine, I'll take it. But in terms of Lamar, I'm with you, right? Like, obviously, he's a difference maker. Now, there could be some voter fatigue. He's won it twice, including last year. So I think he might lose some coin flips if Josh Allen's just incredible. He's never won. So that would be my caution, if you will. But I'm with you. I do like the Ravens -3. Cousin Sal's talked about this. He's been betting it all year. He'd be up like 20 units. Steelers to lose first half, but then win the game. So I think the Ravens will be up at the first half, and I also think they script plays a little better. I just think this Ravens defense gives me a little concern, but I'm with you. I think it does feel a little different with Baltimore, and I think it's Derrick Henry, right? You can lean on him. I have plus 1,200 on him to lead the league in rushing, so I'm hoping it continues. And they botched it in the playoffs last year. They just abandoned the running game, and then, of course, the fumble on the goal line against the Chiefs obviously changed the game as well.
Doug, keep this on the screen because I do have a question for you. Is there a path where Brock Purdy can win out now with all of his weapons back in San Francisco? The AFC West is not that, or NFC West is not that great, and the top of the NFC is really just Washington and Minnesota, right? Philadelphia as well. But do you see a path where Purdy can win out, and now with his weapons back, he has gaudy numbers, right? Because their defense is not as good as years past, and that 22-1 becomes maybe 3-1, 4-1 heading into that final week, and they're playing the
Yeah,
Cardinals in the last game of the season.
so I bet him at like 14-1 going into like the Arizona game they lost because they didn't have a kicker. So my only concern at Purdy at this price, so when you bet a team to win the national championship in basketball, in NCAA basketball, and it's the going into the tournament, right? It's just a 6-leg parlay, right? They have to win every leg. It's money line. Here, there is still combined probability that's part of the math equation, but it's not just as simple and clean math as just winning 6 straight in a single elimination bracket. So you need the good play of Purdy combined with Lamar, Josh, kind of like I'm okay with fading Mahomes because the defense has done so much, and I think Andy Reid might have me coach of the year and stuff like that. But so many of these other guys have to sort of struggle. Now, if Purdy gets it or goes on a run with the Niners, what's the narrative? Is it Purdy's been great? And he has been. Like he's been really good in a lot of ways. Or is it Kyle Shanahan the play caller? Or is it all these weapons and Shanahan's pulling all the right strings? You got Kittle, you got Debo, you got finally Christian McCaffrey's back. Is that sort of the narrative? So I don't know if it's a buy price right now at 2,200 plus 2,200.
Yeah,
Just
I see the narrative going two ways. One is okay, he got his weapons back and now he's good again. Or the other side of it is he didn't have his weapons for most of the year. He kept the team rolling and steady as much as he could. Once they got back, they became an elite team where they should be. At the end of the day, that's a really good coaching staff with amazing players, and Purdy has been kind of like the baseline for all of it, right? So that's the only reason. I mean, I don't really do MVP futures like this. If I were to look at this screen right now, Josh Allen is having an unbelievable season. He's always had an issue of turning the ball over, but I think this year he's 17 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. That's incredible for someone that takes as many gambles as he does. And if you watch a game, and I think this is why Doug doesn't like Jared Goff, the entire team is on Josh Allen's shoulder,
Right.
right? It's not only the offense, it's like the defense. If the defense gets me, if they win the field position battle and Josh Allen gets the ball at midfield, like a field goal is an L for them, right? They're going to try to score a touchdown. So, Josh Allen to me, even though it's plus 350 at this point, maybe you've lost some value, but for someone like me who doesn't have a position yet right now, if he were to win and beat, Patrick Mahomes and stop that undefeated streak, it has to be Josh Allen's award to lose.
So yeah, the question is, just past that midpoint of the season, what happens tonight? What happens Sunday? And those two big games with Lamar and Josh Allen. So there could be some value. I'm with you. I think Allen's going to win the deference, the coin flips, if it's between him and Lamar, him and someone else. I think Allen's going to get it just because he does carry such a big burden and he hasn't won it. And if they win, then that's a big feather in their cap, and people will remember the blocked field goal. Oh, KC should have more than one lot, all that stuff. But he has to win this weekend. He's at home, and he's a total stud. So I can see getting even behind Allen at plus 350. But again, this is the FOMO thing. Like, what's the worst case scenario? So you miss a plus 350 bet. If he goes to like plus 150 or something like that, becomes the favorite. But then you also need Lamar not to do ridiculous things like he did last week, or not just tonight, but the rest of the year. So I think we'll know more, and you got to look at the schedule. The key is looking at the primetime games weeks like 16 and 17, 18. I mean, I'll swear Collinsworth got Rodgers his second MVP a handful of years ago when it was that Titans snow blizzard on a Sunday night,
Yep.
and the Titans couldn't do anything in the snow, and Rodgers is carving him up, and it's like, for me, he's the MVP. And then other people are sheep who are kind of torn or on the fence or just undecided. Okay, let's go to college because we're up against the clock a little bit. We touched on the college game tonight. There's some other games over the weekend. I have 5 plays I like. I want to rip through. Anything jumping out to you early? Have you been able to break down the Saturday card? I mean, I know it's only Thursday afternoon now.
Yeah, not really Saturday, but I actually really like UTSA on Friday night. They're playing North Texas at home. Weather is changing here in Texas, by the way. It's getting colder, windier, might be rainy that day. I like the home team. They're plus one dog. One of the rules I have is unless you really, really, really love them, I stay away from short favorites, especially on the road.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can see that. I think this is going to be a really high scoring game, and like I said earlier, I throw out the UTSA, performance last week with Army. That was just bleeding clock. That was just the service academy. I think we're going to see some points in this game. I think Chandler Moore, is what that offense is doing. It's ranked high. This North Texas offense is legit, and they go for it a lot around midfield. So the 72.5 doesn't scare me because I think UTSA is going to get some points as well. I would just think, like, what would this over-under be if the Army game didn't occur? Because I think it's an outlier, so let's throw it out, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's throw it out, and what would the game be? And I think it would be like 79. I really do.
Another touchdown.
So.
Yeah.
So I think that's where like there's value, and 7 of the 8 other games. So throughout the Army game, there's 8 other games North Texas has played. They've scored 35 or more in 7 of those. The only time they didn't was against Texas Tech. This UTSA defense ranks 118th in FBS and QBR allowed. So I think that Mean Green offense is mad right now. They're going to get up for this game. So I think it's going to be a good spot to back the offense, but I can't blame you at all because UTSA should be able to get some points in this game. And like you said, it's a short road favorite. I think UTSA is probably the right side because North Texas does do dumb things, like 4th and 5. They unnecessarily go for it. I think there might be some frustration from last week because they had a couple, they got to the red zone 3 times and walked away with 3 points for the game. And that's what I would do. So I do like the over in the team total or the over in the game for sure. One game that jumped out at me, it's got some sharp money. The line's gone from 10 to 12. Colorado, because it's against Utah. Utah, the Holy War is as fierce of a rivalry as there is. They left everything on the field. They sort of got hosed. And this is a season that's just, they came in as the favorite in the Big 12, and it's just a lost cause. And now they got to go to Colorado, and this Buffs team's answered every call, right? Like they've done it all. And I'm on CU, and even at the current line of 12, I just don't know if the Utes could get up off the mat off that demoralizing loss. Their running back Brant Keithy's now hurt. like they're not going bowling. They have three tough games remaining. They
Yeah.
need to win two of them. And this Colorado play, I mean, Sanders and Hunter and everyone, they've answered the call all season. I don't think the stage is going to be too big for them in the pressure.
Yeah, 12 is one of those random numbers when it comes to spreads in football. So this is really Colorado or nothing for me. I think the books are expecting a blowout. This is more of
Right.
let's put a number here where we can get a little action on Utah. But I think this could be they could run away by 3 or 4 touchdowns.
And they wanted to get off the 10 because they were only getting one-way
Yep.
traffic earlier in the week. They knew where the market was. I like also South Alabama +7 at UL Lafayette. I think they can win the game. Now, I've been burned a couple times in Lafayette games, so I'm a little concerned with the Raging Cajuns, but I just think that they're a live dog, and I got to grab the 7. It's not my favorite play, but it feels like a lot of points for the top two teams in terms of like yards and everything in the Sun Belt. Louisiana's 5-0. They're eight in conference play, 8-1 overall. They're legit, but seven's a lot of points, and I think. I mean, look, South Alabama had some losses. They went to LSU. They've had some other games. The offense is better than it has shown, so I'm going to roll with the Jaguars in that game.
I love it. What else do you got, Doug?
I think I just got to take the bait with Kansas and BYU. The over/under is 56.5. It's a big number, but I mean this BYU team. It's a very tough home field advantage at night in Provo. Kansas is all of a sudden Jalen Daniels is back. Um, they've been slinging the ball. They've been getting a bunch of yards. Like I think the offense has been humming, and I'm ready to sort of back them in that regard. So I think this KU offense is back, and I wanna get a piece of that, even at a big number like 56.5. But this Cougars team goes for it. They're off the miracle win, but Kansas has been an offensive machine now that Daniels has sort of found his groove of late. And I think they're a bet, an over team right now in this juncture of the season. But that's what I got for now. We'll have more plays, and that's the thing. We have the free links for the free trials, I should say, that's out there. Three free days, I believe it is.
Yeah.
But check us out, hear what we're about. Winding out the show here. Any sort of off the grid sports, this is where you really get to shine.
Yeah, I love these tennis plays, these soccer plays. Tennis has been unbelievable. I've increased tennis plays from 2 units to 3 and 4 units recently in the last 6 weeks, just because I wanted to optimize and reallocate how I was gonna spend my money and risk my money, because tennis has been amazing, like I mentioned. So right now in tennis, there's not a women's tournament going, but there is a men's. They call it the Turin ATP Finals, and it's basically the top 8 players in the world duking it out for a week long. And the match tomorrow that really caught my eye is Carlos Alcaraz. He's a -125 favorite against Alex Zverev. I'm on Alcaraz pretty heavy on this one. People don't know, but Alcaraz is actually the 3rd seed, and his opponent is the 2nd seed. The favorite here is Alcaraz for a reason. He owns this head-to-head matchup, and Zverev hasn't been really pushed in his last 5 matches. I think he's won in straight sets in all 5 of those over Rublev and Rude and those guys. But Alcaraz is a different animal, and I think the biggest difference between these two players is the mental fortitude between them. And so when it's tough, when it's they gotta grind, I rather have Alcaraz. I rather back someone like Alcaraz.
Good stuff. And anything else off the grid? Because this is where like I said, this all of it's your wheelhouse. But I've been always impressed with some of the sports that not
Yeah,
many
so
people are
we
going to
we
follow.
have a huge boxing match, right? We have Jake Paul, Mike Tyson on Netflix. It's kind of like this huge debut for professional sports, professional live boxing. Tyson is 58 years old, man. 58 years old. I know he is arguably one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, one of the greatest boxers of all time. But the script here is not for Tyson to fight. I don't know, or Tyson to win. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think it's Jake Paul, and I think Jake Paul easy.
It's been sharp money only on Paul and all public money on Tyson. This number's come down for a reason. The book's managing risk, and that's what some people need to realize. The job title of a lot of these odds makers is not just always odds maker; it's manager of risk, and they're just trying to balance something. And when you have as high of an interest fight much like Mayweather and McGregor, but this won't be to the same level. Um, you need to like understand that they're moving the number not because like a sharp bet came in or something like that. It's because they're managing risk. So that's why I would caution someone to say like, oh, like there's something up. No, the sharp money's not coming in on the dog here. It's coming in because they're managing risk and they've positioned themselves to need the Jake Paul side. So I think that's the right side. I have to be honest, I'm not like handicapping like Mike Tyson's workouts and all this stuff. Does he have the punching power? Yeah, he's a scary dude. A good guy. Like I've talked to him a couple times, met him, but he's also bit some ears off. So you got to be careful with sort of the
But see, that's the
to have
issue,
his
Doug. Right?
career.
Yeah, right now a lot of people are basing their analysis on a 30-second clip they see on social media, TikTok or Instagram, not knowing that it's most likely sped up. Most likely there's sound graphics added to it to enunciate what's going on. But if we watch Mike Tyson again, I'm not a boxing expert by any means. If you watch a video of him without the edits, he looks slow. At the end of the day, he's 58 years old. Not many people know this, but his last two fights when he was 38, so 20 years ago, he got crushed, right? So like we're fast forwarding now to 2024, and we expect him to beat, someone in his physical prime. It's hard to believe for me.
Yeah, and people want to say, "Oh, Jake, this YouTuber, like Jake Paul's a legit boxer. Is he one of the best pound for pound ever, like Tyson is?" No, he's not. But he's a legit boxer, and I get annoyed when people just try to dismiss him. Like he's put in the work. He's become a regular, legitimate boxer, and you and I are testaments to you can do two different careers and two different things, and be good at more than one thing.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I'm a believer in that regard as well. All right, anything for the people, Albert, before we sign off?
No, like you mentioned, if you're watching this on Twitter or YouTube, definitely check out the links below. I think we have free trials for both my service as well as Doug's service. Take advantage of it. Whether you like it or not, it's free. It's a good trial, to get into. And so appreciate everybody jumping on today. We do have this recording every Thursday at 1 Central Time. So jump, join us and have some fun.
Yeah, and we're just going to get a little bit smoother with the graphics moving forward. 2 p.m. Eastern every single Thursday, and we'll preview that night. Obviously, football being the dominant, story tonight with the Eagles and Commanders, but looking ahead to the weekend as well. So we appreciate everyone tuning in. This was a lot of fun. Albert, it's good to finally get going and get cranking with this, and it's just the starting point here.
Thank you guys.